So a weapon that we have not covered in this sandbox is Breakneck. Breakneck is an auto rifle found in the precision frame archetype with a very unique pinnacle perk that shifts the rate of fire with each stack of Rampage. More specifically, at Rampage stack 1 and 2, it shifts to an adaptive frame archetype, meaning it shoots at 600 rounds per minute. And at stacks of 3, it actually shifts to a rapid fire auto rifle, shooting at 720 rounds per minute. Now, we went over this a number of times. The difference in this sandbox is that all 3 of these archetypes got buffs, meaning Breakneck is probably the only weapon in this game that got 3 buffs in one in update 2.8.0. So first up, let's just take a quick look at Onslaught. This is the pinnacle perk. It stated the weapon's rate of fire increases as you gain stacks of Rampage. Of course, you got Rampage right there, stating that kills with a weapon temporarily grant increased damage, stacks up to 3 times. And for PvE and PvP, I think it's much better to rock Breakneck alongside Rampage spec, simply because it allows you to double dip not only into Rampage itself and keep it for that extra second, but also you retain that Onslaught perk longer, increasing that rate of fire, which is what's really benefiting this auto rifle. Now, previous damage numbers, Breakneck was actually looking pretty healthy. I actually had it recorded hitting a base damage of 26 per crit and 18 per body. Bungie rounds numbers in this game, that was actually incorrect. He was hitting 25.5 per crit and 17 per body. I know, right? And even on some level, there's not many ways we can check ourselves with each stack of Rampage. So just know the numbers and values I give you could be slightly altered due to rounding. But the time to kill values that we do give you are pretty much going to be in the same general area despite any potential roundings. Now, that damage actually increased to 26 per crit and 17 per body at 1 stack of Rampage. At 2 stacks, it increased to 28 per crit and 19 per body. And at 3 stacks, it increased to 24 per crit and 16 per body. Now, we know the damage drops off there, but don't be alarmed. That's because the rate of fire is actually increasing, going up to 720 rounds per minute there at that 3rd stack of Rampage. And as you see there, the time to kill value with each consecutive stack, it's inching lower and lower. 0.93 at the top with its base rate of fire at 450, ramping all the way up to 0.58 seconds at 720 rounds per minute. Now, there's not a lot of forgiveness there. I would say the most forgiveness is at its base rate of fire at 450 and the 1st stack of Rampage. Everything after that really requires you to hit all crits. Now let's take a look at update 2.8.0 and where Breakneck sits now. It is 27.2 per crit and 17 per body, shooting at 450 rounds per minute, and actually has a range here in its time to kill value from 0.8 seconds to 0.933. Now, for that 0.8 second time to kill value, you have to hit all crits at 7 crits, and the Guardian's got to be 4 resilience or less. By the way, the resilience values that I'm pulling are from Mercules' Excel charts, which are very accurate. I literally have some of you send me resilience values from Destiny 1 in my emails. These are current resilience values pulled from the man himself, which is what we're basing everything off of. Now, 1 stack of Rampage, this increases to 28 per crit and 17 per body, a significant increase over last season and even more significant over the previous season. But we're not even going to get into that. Just know that our time to kill value at just 1 stack of Rampage is now 0.6 seconds at 7 crits on any Guardians, 8 resilience or less. Now, 2 stacks of Rampage, this goes up to 30 per crit and 19 per body. Still has the same time to kill value there at 0.6, but a little more forgiveness, and you can kill a Guardian with 1 resilience higher at 9 resilience, which is pretty nice. And at 3 stacks of Rampage, this goes up to 26 per crit and 16 per body, shooting at 720 rounds per minute. No major change here in terms of time to kill at 0.58 seconds, but significantly more forgiving, and the ability to kill nearly max resilience Guardians, which is kind of a big kicker. Not that everybody's walking around with max resilience, but you kind of want to pay attention to resilience, because if you get into a situation where you run into damage fall off, knowing that your weapon can secure a kill and that 0.58 second time to kill value at nearly max resilience offers that level of forgiveness when you start stretching into those ranges where damage fall off plays a factor. Now, the reason why we actually want to collect these damage values is we want to compare them to an auto rifle within the 600 round per minute archetype, the adaptives, as well as the rapid fire frame archetypes, the 720s, with say something like Rampage, to make sure our numbers here with Breakneck are either matching or exceeding that of those weapons. This is how we actually double check to make sure Breakneck here is not underperforming. So first up, and understand guys, there's some rounding here. I took the damage values that Bungie supplied us. So these damage values will be different than what's in game, but these are the real number values based on what Rampage gives us per stack. The first stack is 10%, the second stack is 21%, and then it caps out at 33% at 3 stacks. These These were damage values that we pulled right after Shadowkeep went live. And when we apply them to the new damage numbers provided by Bungie for 600s, we see at 1 stack of Rampage, this kicks up to 27.7 and 17.3, which makes sense considering at 1 stack of Rampage with Breakneck, we're hitting 28 per crit and 17 per body. Obviously some rounding there. At 2 stacks, we notice that we actually have 30.5 per crit and 19.1 per body. Now, the way numbers work inside of Bungie or inside of Destiny is it can go either way, boys. It can round up, it can round down. It can make no sense whatsoever. And I've even seen it jump 2 numbers. It's bizarre. The main thing we want to make sure is there's not some crazy deviation there from what we see here on 600s. 0.5, not a big difference. Now, we're not going to really focus on ×3 because obviously Breakneck jumps to another archetype shooting at 720 rounds per minute. When we actually sit down and compare this to what a 720 round per minute auto rifle would be hitting at 3 stacks of Rampage, we notice here that it's actually hitting 26.8 per crit and 17.8 per body. Now that's a little concerning. And I bring that up because that is somewhat of a significant difference there, not in its crit value, but in its body shot value. And again, the damage values that I'm showing you is just what's being reflected there in game, which can have some mistakes and errors. And just to double check, I actually broke out a misfit here, and we were hitting 27 per crit and 18 per body. So there was actually some clear rounding up in the correct way, showcasing the correct numbers in its 720 form, which is 1 less than Breakneck in its crit shot at 720 rounds per minute and 2 less in its body shot value, which is a little significant. You know, when we have just like a 0.5 deviation, I can overlook that. But when we have almost two whole damage there, which could make a really big difference there on that 3rd stack of Rampage, it makes us question whether or not these damage values are actually reflecting correctly or if this is something intentional on Bungie's part. Now understand, it could very well be intentional. Could be Bungie's weird way of keeping Breakneck balanced, although I never thought this auto rifle was by any means meta. At any point through its launch and the 2 past buffs, as well as the 3 buffs that we have seen in this sandbox, even then, I don't think Breakneck is broken. Because at the end of the day, you still got to get to those stacks of Rampage. You still got to get a kill with a 450 round per minute auto rifle, which is not necessarily in the worst of states, but it's not a 600. Most 600s are sitting at a very healthy 0.7 time to kill by default. They are in a very good place. Whereas 450s are sitting at 0.8 and even further than that at 0.93 against Guardians rocking 5 resilience or more. And to go an even further step, Breakneck doesn't have anything there boosting its zoom. Therefore, its damage fall off actually begins at about 30 meters. Whereas if you take my Uriel's gift here, which is not even a god roll, it's a good roll, but even this basic roll Uriel's has a damage fall off range beginning at about 39 meters. The way Bungie is balancing this is saying, hey, yes, 450s have a slower time to kill value than 600s and 720s, but they got more range. Breakneck, though, doesn't. It doesn't experience that benefit. Despite it being a very good looking auto rifle and actually being one of my favorite weapons, there's just a lot working against this gun. Now, it shreds. If you can get a stack of Rampage going with Rampage spec, you bet your ass it shreds. It can get the tearing a team up, but it's just getting it past its base 454 is what's going to be so tough. So guys, try it out for yourself. Again, Breakneck is doing better inside of PvE. Nothing has changed there. All around the board, every single buff that was done to auto rifles affected this weapon in every single way, both directly and indirectly. And when it comes to a weapon that's good in 6v6 scenarios and taking down multiple targets at a time, Breakneck is fantastic. Considering that Onslaught also gives like a pseudo outlaw perk or feeding frenzy perk, allowing you to get that increased reload speed when you have stacks of Rampage. The only other complaint I really have about Breakneck is how terrible it feels in the hands of a controller user. I played on my controller with it just to see because I was just curious. Summoner actually feels really good on controller. Breakneck does not. This auto rifle, despite actually having good decent stability stats, just for some reason does not handle well in the hands of a controller user, or at least mine. So let me know in the comments below what you think about Breakneck. Are you pleased with the changes? I know I just talked poorly about it toward the end here. For mouse and keyboard users, I mean, it feels nice. I like it. I think the great debate, though, is going to be why use Breakneck, though, when you could just use a well-rolled 600. And that's absolutely correct. You can get the same benefits from a 600 round per minute auto rifle with a faster default time to kill value in its base form. So I completely understand if you want to pick up that Hardline or that Summoner or that Suros freaking regime, man, because they nasty. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.